Hello and welcome to my C85 build, where I'll be going through all the main parts of the build, Betaflight and BLHeli setup, firmware issues and updates, and everything else you need to get the C85 off the ground. So to do the C85 build, you're going to need similar components or these components. These ones are actually the ones recommended by iFlight. So you've got the main body section with the ducts, and then you've got the carbon fiber section here, and I've already put on the TPU spacers and the DJI camera, so this goes over onto that section there. I got the original DJI camera rather than the Nebula. I've got the iFlight 1303 5000 kV motors. These actually replaced the smaller ones which used to be on the A85. Got the Caddx Nebula VTX there, the Albatros Antenna, the Crossfire Antenna, and the TBS Crossfire receiver there, and the iFlight Sussex D 20 amp F4 all-in-one board. So first, I think what you're going to need to do is measure the length of wire you need to get it from its position to the underside. And with this build, what happens is you've got the motor underneath, obviously because it's a pusher style, and then you see the thin section in the duct. It goes through there, over the duct, and then down into this middle section, and underneath there's going to be a small kind of TPU canopy which is going to hold everything. So I'm going to get on and do this, get all the wires done. I'm going to get the tips ready, and just going to tin the tip of the wires. A little bit of flux pen onto the sections. Then I'm gonna get some pre-soldering on. Nice round shiny sections, preferably. So this underneath section fits there, which holds the all-in-one board. And then the way it's been designed, the VTX, whichever one you have, either analog or if you have this Nebula or Vista one, it basically goes over. And then there's actually no space. It becomes really tight if you're using the DJI version. So I've tried assembling it, and what happened was it made it warp because of the section in the middle. It was pressing too hard. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm actually going to take this middle section off. As you can see, it's connected to all four sides, so it's going to be giving some support, but what's going to replace that support is the actual VTX. So when this gets placed over here and screwed in, it's going to be fine. Plus we get enough space to get it done properly and not have any issues with it warping the ducts. So for the Crossfire, you've got the 4 wires which are going to be going there. So the first one, you've got ground, then 5 volt, and then you've got the TX and RX. So I'll put it up here in the corner here for you to see which way they go on. And if you've got different ones, obviously just make sure you're doing it correctly. Most of them go into this section here, so I'm just going to get this done here now. So remember, TX goes to RX and RX goes to TX. So for the power cable here, as they've got small kind of space in there for it, which is this nicely size of the wire, I'm going to pop them in like so and use something just to hold it into place, and then solder over. As you can see the way I've done it here, so actually solder it the complete opposite way. So now you see how you've got it going away in that direction. Just do it the opposite way, because initially I had it coming out of the bottom of the quad, and I realized there's actually a small gap which is suitable for actually bringing it through the quad underneath, next to the ducts, as I'll show you. So as you can see, it's slightly tricky to get this done, because you have to have the motor in place going over that section there to get the soldering done. So this is the direction it's going to be facing, like so. So then for the motor, that's motor positions, you've got motor 1 there on the bottom right, which will go there, and you've got motor 2 there next to it, and then the bottom left you've got motor 3, and then the top right you've got motor 4. For me with this, I found it easy just to like pop it onto a bit of blue tack to hold it into place, and then have the solder points to the right side, and then just use the middle gap of the frame to be able to just solder through. Definitely recommend using tweezers for this section, because the wires can get hot, and also it stops it being so fiddly. So as we've done the tinning and we've put the solder onto the solder points, it's just a quick touch just to get it both melted into place, and we should be good to go. One thing, be careful though, if you're doing it the way I've done it here, because the frame is all plastic, just make sure you don't get any of the plastic melted or ruined. As you can see, we've done it there. I'm doing them all in a row, like 1, 2, 3 wires. You can choose to cross some of them to get the direction of the motors the other way, but I would rather do that afterwards with BLHeli. Okay, so now after I've done that, I've done the 4 motors done, and I've placed the board with these 12mm hex 1.5s, 12mm hex screws. The kit comes with 15mm, but they're a bit too big to do it the way I'm doing it here. So what I've done is got it from the underside all the way through, and then I'm using these small rubber washers just to create a bit of dampening. The board itself has a double-sided dampener which goes in each corner, and then above there, as I've shown you, I've got the other dampener. I actually forgot to put the cable from the Vista unit in there. Just gonna undone it slightly, put it back in. Okay, so we've got the cable in for the DJI. So before any of this gets covered up, I just want to make sure that there's no short circuits or any issues. So I'm going to check it with the ohm meter, with the multimeter. I really advise getting one of these. You can get one for like $10 to $15 a pound, and it'll save you from short circuiting something and having to replace it. Especially with these all-in-one boards, even if you ruin, like, let's say one of the ESCs, you're gonna have to replace the whole board. Another good thing to get is like a smoke stopper, or build a smoke stopper. I purchased one. You can look online to see what those are. Okay, so that's all good. So next, the screws which are coming through will just go in to the HD unit here, the VTX. So the front is that way. So on the top right we've got the cable which comes out, which is going to go to the camera. And then the opposite side of that is the cable which will go to the antenna. So after this, the carbon fiber section will go on top. So you've got these TPU spacers and dampeners which go in between the carbon fiber above the motor, and then you've got the motor going through. Well, at the moment I've got 2 of the screws in, but you can do all 4 screws obviously. Then make sure the wire is not dangling on the underside. I'm going to put the antenna for the Crossfire on. So make sure you get the antenna on for the VTX as well before you place the top cover on. Because as you can see here, I actually forgot to do this and I had to undo it. Because the location is just underneath the carbon fiber section. It comes with a small little mount which you put the antenna through, and it screws to one of the 2 screw slots which you've got on the 4 sides of the quad. So after you've done all of that, you can put your camera on. I had this was from another unit which had the V1 Nebula camera with it, which I didn't like, and I couldn't get the Nebula Pro yet. I mean, it's out now, but when I purchased some of these items, so I got the DJI camera instead. I know it weighs 2-3 grams extra, but it should be fine for this power of quad. Whichever camera you use, it should pop on easily on here. The mount which you see I've already got on there, you get 2 with the kit. So you've got a thinner one and a wider one. So if you're using the Nebula, you can use the thinner one, and then if you're using the wider cameras, so micro or nano depending on whichever one, you can use the different mount. And that's it basically. One last thing to definitely do, that I like to do if I've done the soldering myself, is to use the smoke stopper before I connect the battery in directly, just to make sure that everything is going fine here. So you plug in one side to the battery and the other side to the drone. Everything seems good. So next we're going to move on to BLHeli and Betaflight and any other settings required to get this project finished. So next we're going to connect to Betaflight to test the motors. So at the moment everything is standard Betaflight setup, and I'm not going to be changing anything yet. So if you go to configuration, I'm going to be turning off Bi-Directional D-shot off for the moment, because there's a conflict between the firmware for the ESCs, so we're getting these errors up, as you can see. So just to do the test of the motors, I'm going to leave it like that, and then we're going to go back to that issue. So just test each motor separately, make sure it sounds fine, sounds smooth, and there's no issues with that. Okay, that all seems good. So now I'm going to test it with a little piece of tissue just to see their directions. One is actually not on the bottom left. It's on the bottom right, as you can see above as well, but because it's upside down, it's showing it the other way around. So as you can see from the top picture, the top two are outward and the bottom two are outward. But with this test, with the tissue, as you can see, it's moving to the direction. The top two are outward, but the bottom two are inward. So I'm going to be changing that with BLHeli. So 1, 2, 3, 4. These two at the bottom, they're going to have to be reversed the other way. So if we go to BLHeli now, connect, make sure you've disconnected from Betaflight. So as you can see, we've got ESC 1, 2, 3, 4, and so we need 1 and 3 to be in reversed. So you just click reversed, right setup, disconnect and connect back to Betaflight. And if we do the test now, the reason I'm doing it with the tissue is because it moves to the direction of which way it's spinning. But there's no point putting on propellers at this point for safety reasons. So as you can see, top two are still outwards and the bottom two are outwards too, just like the diagram on the top left there where you see it says motors. So next what I'm going to be doing is installing the CLI dump, which has been provided by iFlight, which is specifically for the C85. So what you do is you go to CLI, you choose load from file, you choose the file, and then execute. So basically this file I got off iFlight. As this moment of in time, it's not out for public release, but I'm going to put it in the below links for you to be able to download. So this comes complete with all the custom setup and tunings which iFlight has done for the C85. Okay, so once that's done, we connect again. So this time round, within the configuration, I'm going to leave the D-shot setting, the bi-directional, on, which is causing the conflict. And basically I figured out what it is. The problem we're having here is the firmware for the ESCs don't support the bi-directional D-shot. So what we're going to have to do is update the firmware for the ESCs via BLHeli, and then the communication should be fine between the motors and the ESCs and the bi-directional D-shot. So as you can see, I found the file already for this, so we're going to be changing it from GH30 to the GH30 Rev16 file. I'm going to put a link to that down below as well, so you've got all the files you need to do these upgrades. So once we've done that and we've saved everything, we go back to Betaflight and we can see that the error underneath, the E100 error, so instead of it being 100% error, it's 0% error now, and everything is working fine. So finally, the last thing I did was just to make sure that everything in the configuration is fine. As I had Crossfire, I changed it to CRSF here, or if you have S-Bus or FrSky, you can do on the S-Bus. And then the modes, just make sure you've got all your modes: arming, angle, horizon. So basically, if you do angle and horizon on 2 of the switches, because normally you have the 3 switches on one position, if you do, for example, angle and horizon on the first 2 and leave the last one blank, it automatically will be acro. So that's it. That basically covers everything. We've done the tuning, the CLI, the build, Betaflight, BLHeli, everything done. If you want to see some flight footage and review of the actual C85, I've got that in another video, so check that out. So please subscribe and like to my channel to support me, and thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.